now ready for our next keynote. And this is where I would like people, everyone, or those that have their phones with them, to download Slido if you haven't already, because our next speaker is definitely going to be asking you to use it when she is running a few polls from up here. We're going to hear from Anje Munchausen from Brot für die Welt. And as I said in my introduction earlier on, as 2024 emerges as a pivotal election year globally, featuring national elections in over 50 countries, including some of the world's largest economies, there is a growing concern that governments are elected that may lean towards reduced freedom, less international cooperation, and a shrinking space for journalists, NGOs, and unions. Anje will tell us a lot more, and she will also let us know about all of the important work of her company, Brot für die Welt. As I said, she has prepared some polls for us, which we really hope that you will be engaging in. Anje, it's over to you, and the stage is yours, and I will come back for our Q&A in a little while. So let's give her a warm welcome, Anje.
Yes, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, is it working? Is the microphone working now? It's better? Okay, I think now now it's very loud, okay. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear esteemed guests, thank you for having me today in this diversity and inclusion track here at the green stage of ITB. I'm very grateful to contribute to this important topic, and I aim to broaden our perspectives on a fundamental aspect, the opportunity for voices to be heard in the broader landscape of society. My name is Anje Munchausen, and for more than a decade I had the privilege to lead Tourism Watch, which is a special unit at Bread for the World. This role allowed me to combine both my interest for human rights and global solidarity and justice with my deep belief that the tourism industry can be a potential driver for sustainable development. Since its inception of Tourism Watch in the 1970s with the upcoming international tourism, we have been dedicated to shining a light on those often overlooked at the destination. Collaborating with fellow NGOs, our mission has been to amplify the voices of those marginalized along the global tourism industry supply chain, shedding light on their struggles and advocating for their rights. Today, as Charlotte already said, I'm standing here to share a concern with you, both for the future of tourism as an economy force intertwined tremendously with freedom, and for the broader concept of freedom itself, which serves as a cornerstone for individual empowerment and self-determination, also in tourism. I'm grateful for the opportunity to delve into the current reality of civil society here at ITB. The timing couldn't be more apt, as Charlotte said, as 2024 emerges as a year of elections in more than 50 countries of the world, including large economies such as the US, Mexico, Indonesia, or also the European Union. Collectively, more than 3 billion people are invited to use their power for democratic decisions and exercise their democratic rights. However, let us not forget that there are billions of people who painfully miss this fundamental freedom in countries where democracy remains elusive. While 2024 holds promises as a year of elections, it's essential to acknowledge a bitter reality. Although we celebrate the democratic processes, we also see, and this is shown here at the slide, that think tanks and scientists reveal a concerning pattern of shrinking democratic recession spanning at least over the last 10 years. before diving deeper in what this means for the free space of civil societies, I would like to ask you to use the polls that Charlotte also already introduced to know from you, what do you estimate? How many percentage of the world population? I'm not sure how to proceed, no? Could you start the poll, please? Okay, it's running? Not yet? Okay. Okay, it's good that I have pretty time, and now we get to the Slido. So I need the other poll, the first one. So as I'm the starter on the first day, we can all exercise this, and I'm pretty sure that it will be used in the next days. So I'm not sure what you are seeing so far. Do you get nothing? Okay. Okay. So now, yes, now we have it. I would like to know from you what you estimate how much of the world population is living under free conditions, so has the right to fully enjoy civic space and where the governments are fully enabling and safeguarding this right. We have the options of 2% of world's population, 5% of the world population, 12%, 20%, or even 30% of the world population. We are speaking here about countries that fully support and enable their citizens to use civic space. Okay, I'm looking in some thinking faces. So I give you another 10 seconds. Okay, then we are seeing that what you are estimating is that, or the majority of you estimate that 12% of world population living under this open conditions where their governments are supporting their right to demonstration, to peaceful protest, to expression of their opinion. The sad truth is that it's 2% of the world's population living under this supported and enabled environment. The numbers that I'm using in the presentation, now I need to go back to the presentation. Okay. So again, this backdrop of this very shameful figure, I would like to introduce to you the CIVICUS monitor. The CIVICUS monitor is a very valuable tool to understand the status of civil society globally. Published by CIVICUS, which is an international alliance supporting and committed to enhancing citizen engagement in civil society worldwide, is offering this comprehensive tool since 5 years now, which is also accompanied by a map that I would warmly invite you to check the homepage and look also at the map. What I'm bringing you here is the development that we are seeing. When we are looking at the different categories, we see the red category, which is now composing of 28 states, primarily in the Middle East, in Central and East Asia. We find countries where civic space is entirely closed, characterized by fear and violence. Individuals exercising their rights face imprisonment, injury, and even death. Criticism against authorities is met with severe punishment, and media freedom is not existing, with extensive internet censorship and websites blocking. When we are looking at the orange category, which has 50 countries in it, including the majority of African states, the Central American states, and some states in South Asia, we encounter nations where civic space is severely restricted. Here, individuals who criticize those in power face surveillance, harassment, and imprisonment. Peaceful protesters risk encountering excessive force and mass arrests, while independent media and online platforms may face censorship and restrictions. In the obstructed category, which combines 40 states, we see many countries in the Pacific, in Southern Africa, and most of the Southern American countries. Civil societies and independent media exist, but are constantly undermined by state authorities through illegal surveillance and harassment. Even peaceful assembly, though formally allowed, often meets with excessive force and violence. We are seeing here that the majority of countries are in this red, orange, and yellow groups. When we are looking at the light green category, although the state permits individuals and civil society organizations to exercise their rights, violations of those rights persist. This is evident in most European countries as well as in some nations worldwide, such as Mongolia, Costa Rica, or Namibia. So there are positive examples in their regions being in this light green narrowed category. And then we have the green category, which consists of this 2% that I asked you before, when we are counting their population. The green category comprises the Scandinavian states, the Baltic states, and Canada. We found countries where states not only facilitate, but also safeguard the enjoyment of civic rights. Currently, 118 out of 198 states fall under the red, the orange, or the yellow category. Shockingly, when we are looking at the numbers now, we are seeing that almost 1/3 of the global population is living in the red category of countries that I mentioned before. This is totaling of 2.4 billion people worldwide. The highest percentage since 2018. So the number of states as well as the number of people who are faced by shrinking civic space is increasing. Conversely, we see 15% of the global population resides in countries where governments allow civil society organizations to exercise their rights. When we are looking more in detail in these figures, we see that particularly the civic space for women, environmental activists, LGBTIQ+ activists, unionists, and youth is often harmed. So what are the consequences of those trends and observations? Only offering trips to countries with green or light green category is not an option for no one in this room, at least I think so here at the Travel Fair ITB. And honestly and frankly, a world would be very small and it would be very trist if one tries to strictly follow such a rule. However, ignoring this alarming trend of shrinking civic space is also not an option. Now this is a difficult word. Authoritarianism is on the rise and the tourism industry is not immune to its effects. On the contrary, authoritarian states utilize tourism to project a positive image to the world. Revenue from tourism finance the political power of elites in many countries. Tourism serves as both an economic but also a political business model in those countries with red and orange conditions. In some nations, even the military is offering direct tourism activities, operating airplanes, operating boats, etc. Protests against tourism developments are brutally suppressed in these countries. Additionally, in countries categorized as yellow or orange, protests against airport constructions or demands for more involvement in tourism planning can lead to severe intimidation. I'm glad that today, during this important diversity and inclusion track, we have a chance, for example, to hear from Uganda how the completely closed space for LGBTIQ plus engagement is harming local people in the queer communities, but also harming tourism development in this country. Unfortunately, Uganda is not an isolated case. You have heard of the case of Ghana last week, where the government decided to have an anti-LGBTIQ bill just passed and waiting for approval by President. But what is concerning me is all the stories that we don't hear. We are not hearing from the countries in the red category. And 28, I mentioned 28 countries, 25 of them are exhibitors here at ITB. So tourism is emerging in those countries, those governments are using tourism. So what does this mean, being a tourism operator, doing business? The question for all industries, including tourism, is how to do business under these difficult circumstances in an environment where freedom is increasingly under siege. And how can tourism businesses avoid being complicit with authoritarian and oppressive regimes? This is not just a moral imperative, but an obligation and a strategic decision for companies to do successful business in those destinations, because tourism depends more than every other sector on freedom and local acceptance. The industry must proactively develop strategies to promote diversity and inclusions while navigating the complex terrain of government that violate minority rights. The most central framework for such an approach are the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, adopted by the international community in 2012. These principles serve as a basis also for new legal framework that we are having in more and more countries and that are now still under discussion at the European Union. The UN Guiding Principles are very clear. Even if governments are unwilling or unable to safeguard the human rights of their citizens and local population, companies still have the responsibility to respect human rights. This is not a passive responsibility, but a demand to proactively avoid negative consequences on human rights along the supply chain. Central to these principles is stakeholder engagement. It's not just a buzzword, it's a fundamental aspect of good corporate governance. By engaging stakeholders, companies can better understand, prevent, mitigate, track, and remediate their impacts on people and the environment throughout their operations and business relationships. I would like to invite you to do another poll. We now have a very open question, so please think about 3 stakeholder groups in the destination that are important for you as a company or as someone doing tourism. Just you're open to write down whatever stakeholder group you are aware of. It's about stakeholders in the destinations. Okay, we have a word cloud here, so if things are mentioned more often, then they are getting bigger. Okay, we see the host, the local communities. We see business stakeholders, capital owners, hotel staff, students, local entrepreneurs, associations. Okay, so this will continue. You can still type stakeholder groups down. The UN Guiding Principles underline the necessity of meaningful consultation with potentially affected groups and other stakeholders. But what does meaningful mean? Here it is crucial to emphasize the definition of stakeholders, particularly potentially affected groups. These are individuals or communities whose human rights may be impacted by a company's operation, products, or services. In essence, they are the rights holders and their voices must be heard and respected. Yet companies often gravitate towards engaging with stakeholders who are already organized in the destinations or who already have power and influence. This might be groups like I've seen local authorities, capital owners, restaurant associations. But it is very important, and the human rights due diligence approach demands specific attention and engagement with affected groups, especially those who are vulnerable or who are marginalized in the destinations. If you remember the slide from Slido, and I think we can go back to the presentation again. If you remember this slide of the Civicus monitor saying that women, LGBTIQ activists, environmental defenders are most harmed by shrinking civic space. These are the groups that you particularly have to try to listen to. Particularly in countries with minimal civic space, it is a responsibility of companies to respect an extra portion of engagement of energy to getting those voices heard and listen to them from vulnerable groups. Yet it is important to also taking care that this engagement is not additionally exposing them to risks of violence and intimidation. And I'm glad that at this Diversity and Inclusion 7 gives space for experienced practitioners in a later panel on how to navigate at this narrow edge. On the slide behind, just some recommendable tools and practical implementation guidelines, how to do stakeholder engagement right. And particularly, I would like to focus on the materials of the Roundtable Human Rights in Tourism, because they are particularly looking at tourism supply chains and tourism destinations. Coming to an end, let me look at something that gives hope. Yes, it is true that many countries face notable growth in authoritarian tendencies, populist movements, and erosion of democratic norms. And 2024 doesn't seem to be a year where a U-turn is possible. But civil society engagement and international solidarity efforts are also on the rise. Advocacy campaigns, legal interventions, and grassroots mobilization are actively pushing back against the encroachment on civic space. This trend is currently evident, for example, in Germany, where also tour operators are part of mobilizing citizens against a rise of far-right ideologies here in Germany, but this is also true in many other countries. Moreover, I'm observing a significant shift within the tourism industry towards engaging with human rights, being it tour operators who are conducting human rights impact assessments, advocating for governments to being more active to support children from sexual exploitation, for example, in destination workshops, or providing platforms for dialogue and even criticism within the destinations. While not all tourism companies have embraced those approaches yet, an increasing number recognizes that promoting human rights is an integral part to their business success. They understand that it is more beneficial to be criticized from the right side than getting applause from the wrong stakeholders. With this optimistic outlook, I would like again to express my sincere thanks for listening to me and getting in this situation and learning about civil society space in many destinations. And as I was involved in the last 15 years in many human rights impact assessment, destination dialogues, etc., I'm very happy that we have some time to talk about how this practically can look like. Thank you.
Take a seat, my dear. What an engaging presentation. It's tough. I mean, it's tough to see it like that. I think, would you agree as an audience and to learn? Thank you very much for diving into this. I love the fact that there are so many people in the room, but how I wish that it had been full for this, I must say. So thank you very much. We will keep on putting this on the agenda here at ITB Berlin, because we truly believe that this is something very, very important to discuss. So I'm very glad that I get the opportunity to chat with you a little bit as well. And as we spoke recently, preparing for today, you said that you will be mentioning the word human rights quite significantly, and rightly so. But it seems to sometimes almost be like more of a Western concept, which we discussed as well. And I was thinking, how do the partners deal with this so that there's a common understanding and that actually everybody is sort of singing from the same hymn sheet here?
Well, if someone is saying that human rights is a Western concept, I would always ask this person, what is the benefit of this person of saying so? Because it's historically not right and politically not right. Human rights is owned by people in the destination, by everyone on this planet. And when we are as Bread for the World, we are active in more than 90 countries worldwide, some of them with quite shrink space for civil society. And we always see that in those countries there are organizations demanding human rights. And if we are looking, for example, at Iran, it's the local women who are fighting for their right to exercise and to decide how to live, how to love, and what to do with their life. And it's the men supporting them. So it's, one has to be quite blind to think that in those countries, even with a shrinked civic space, people are not demanding for human rights. Sometimes they are calling it differently. So in the culture, in the religion, etc., there might be different concepts, but this concept that everyone has a human dignity that could not be stolen from this person, that this person cannot be loose by anything that this person is doing. This is deeply involved in all cultures all over the world.
You have very modestly not talked so much about all the wonderful work of Brot für die Welt. Might you allow us to hear a little bit about the organization, a little bit more, how you are organized, and also, I guess, how people could maybe come to you for advice and help, because I know that that's what you offer as well.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to speak about this. Bread for the World is a church-based organization for development and global justice. Our deep belief is that local organizations are the best to decide what change they want to have in their life space. So we are not implementing ourselves, but we are supporting local organizations, 1,800 organizations worldwide in more than 90 countries, to do what they think is the best for sustainable development, for being future-proof. And most of those organizations have a clear human rights focus. Yes, we are very, very privileged, so sometimes when we are talking about shrinking space, it's such a depressive topic. But working for the organization allows me to also hear and listen to some positive examples where civil society organizations are fighting and succeeding and having success. And this is very optimistic also to be able to see this. So if someone wants to support, we are a funding-based organization. We are asking for private funds, and you can check the website on how to support Bread for the World.
Yes, I would certainly recommend anybody listening in today to check out the fabulous work of this organization. Oh, keep losing my glasses, sorry. We spoke a little bit about the stakeholder sort of engagement, and it is complicated, right? I mean, it's how do you dive in there, and how do you really engage with people in order to see even the smallest little steps in the right direction take place?
I think it is very important to see what the reality of these stakeholders looks like. So, for example, I can tell you of one practical example from Sri Lanka, where we tried together with a German tour operator to have a dialogue between fishermen and hotel owners. So the hotel owners used to invite the fishermen to come to the hotel in the afternoon. The fishermen were very, very afraid of going to the hotel, so it was for them anyway a very difficult situation to go there. But it was also very technically difficult because they are fishing at night. They are coming back in the morning at 7 from the seas. and during day they are recovering to going out at night again. So if you want to consult those people, you have to go in the morning at 7 o'clock to the place where they are coming with their fisher boats and trying to meet them there. But if you are only offering them a space in the hotel, it might be very difficult to get them on board. So really try to understand the local reality, trying to identify those who could help you to get access to people and try to meet them in their living situation and not in an artificial space somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about the stakeholder engagement, meaning that you get sort of contrasting, I guess, positions and perspectives. The importance of this, obviously, is enormous. How does an organization like yours sort of go about that?
If you are asking 5 people, you get 6 responses. That's a reality wherever you are speaking to people. So I think that is a reality that you are having. So it's very important to also identify local supporters, being at universities or NGOs or unions, who could explain a little bit about the context, why someone is giving this or that answer. So being shocked by different responses, I think that then you just have to ask again and again and more people, and then a full picture. You get a full picture of the situation.
It's quite a relentless it's quite a relentless job, I expect. But what are the real positives for you doing the work that you're doing? Tell us about that.
I think looking at the tourism situation. So my personal motivation is, yes, we need change, and this change comes and is grounded in local organizations. But when we are looking at a company as such, then it's the long-term business success as well. Because if you are, especially in tourism, if you are in a destination and there's no local acceptance to tourism, then your guests might come once, but they would never return because they were not feeling welcomed. And I think this is the essence of tourism. It's an economic sector, yes, true, but it's an economy that builds on being welcomed, on feeling home in a destination. And I think therefore it's part of the business success to really try to get all stakeholders on board.
Fantastic. This is all we've got time for, but we very much hope to see you again next year with updates and stats, and we all hope, you know, that things are going in the right direction, and organizations like yours certainly are making a massive difference. A hand for Anja, please, as we get ready for the next large panel. Thank you very much. I'll be back in a couple of minutes.